On what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, Emily stood at the altar, facing an unimaginable humiliation. Her groom, in a moment that shocked everyone present, made derogatory remarks about her weight in front of their friends and family. Instead of succumbing to anger or tears, Emily took a deep breath, her mind racing towards a response that would leave a lasting impact far beyond any immediate retort. With grace and a plan forming in her mind, Emily's next steps would redefine her life's trajectory in a way no one, especially the groom, could foresee. The sound of the gasping audience filled the room as Emily tried to wrap her head around what was happening. The man she loved and was about to marry showed a side of himself that she had never seen before. During his vows, the moment Emily had looked forward to the most, he said the most degrading words, totally catching Emily off guard. As the room fell silent, Emily's eyes filled with tears. She really hoped this was some kind of fever dream, but it wasn't. Her eyes darted around the audience, taking in every shocked face. They were all waiting for Emily to erupt in anger, but she didn't want to give her fiancé what he was hoping for. No, she wanted to make him regret it in another way. Suddenly, the perfect response popped into Emily's head. She knew this would be the only way to turn the tables on him. As soon as she knew what she would do, all her sadness and anger disappeared to make room for adrenaline and pride. He would never see this coming. But why did her fiancé humiliate her? And what will Emily do in response? Emily and Derek's wedding day was supposed to be one for the books. They had spared no expense, hiring the best caterer, renting out the biggest and most impressive venue, and even flying in friends and family members from other countries. They had saved up for this moment from the day they had gotten engaged, which was almost 2 years ago. It was no surprise that Emily couldn't think of anything else in the days leading up to their wedding. Looking back, she should have seen the subtle signs Derek was giving her. He suddenly responded very late to all her texts, stopped talking about their wedding, and whenever Emily would bring up something she was excited about, he would simply shrug his shoulders or answer with a, yeah, nice. At that time, Emily brushed it off as him being nervous, but little did she know he was actually planning something she would remember forever, and not in a good way. The night before the wedding, Emily slept over at her sister's house. They talked for hours about how beautiful and magical it would be. If only she had known what Derek planned to do to her. The day of the wedding began great. Emily hadn't been in contact with Derek at all, but that was something they had agreed on. They wanted to build up the tension for the moment Emily would walk down the aisle. The room was buzzing with friends and family, all waiting patiently for Emily. Then, finally, it was go time. When the violin started to play, Emily knew it was her time to shine. Her heart skipped a beat, and her stomach was filled with butterflies. Suddenly, the doors swung open, and Emily looked into the eyes of her soon-to-be husband. Emily had hoped he would choke up at the sight of her in her wedding dress, but instead, he just stood there, no emotion showing. She tried not to think too much of it, as it could easily be just his nerves, but when she stood across from him, and he didn't even smile at her, she knew something was wrong. She tried to ask him with her eyes, as they could sometimes communicate without even speaking, but it seemed like their connection wasn't like it used to be. When it was time for him to read his vows, her heart sank. Derek went first, and finally he let out a slight smile. But it wasn't a smile of happiness. It was a sneaky smile, like he was about to do something he wasn't supposed to. Emily had seen it before when he would prank her, but this wasn't going to be a prank. There she was, standing at the altar in her wedding dress, expecting to hear sweet words from Derek. Instead, he started insulting her about how she looked and her weight, right there with everyone listening. It felt like a slap in the face. Emily's heart sank as she realized Derek was intentionally trying to embarrass her in front of everyone. What was meant to be the happiest part of her wedding suddenly felt like a nightmare. As Derek's harsh words hung in the air, a heavy silence fell over the room. All the guests, who had come expecting to witness a beautiful exchange of vows, were now caught in a moment of shock. Emily desperately scanned the crowd, hoping to find some kind of support or someone who might stand up for her. But all she saw were faces filled with surprise and confusion. She had dreamed of this day being a celebration of her love with Derek, surrounded by happiness and joy. Instead, here she was, being humiliated in front of everyone she cared about. The tears rolled down her cheeks quietly, a silent scream of the pain and betrayal she felt. Each tear was a piece of her broken dream. Despite the overwhelming urge to sob loudly, she kept her cries silent, her dignity holding on by a thread. Amidst her search for a friendly face or a sign of empathy, Emily's gaze landed on an unfamiliar man. Unlike the rest of the shocked guests, he was smiling broadly, as if he found the situation amusing. This sight was like a punch in the gut, making her feel even more vulnerable and alone. It was bizarre and hurtful to see someone taking pleasure in her embarrassment. Who was this man? Emily wrestled with the urge to either break down crying or run away from the humiliation. However, she quickly realized that giving Derek the reaction he seemed to want would only make things worse. She couldn't let him see how deeply he had hurt her. In that moment, Emily made a decision. She wouldn't let this end with her being the victim of Derek's cruelty. She was determined to respond, but not in the way he or anyone else expected. After deciding not to let Derek's cruelty win, Emily felt a strong urge to call him out right there, or even confront the man who laughed. But deep down, she knew that wouldn't really fix anything. She wanted her comeback to mean something more, to be something that Derek couldn't just shrug off. She wanted to make sure that whatever she did next would hit him where it hurt the most, without losing herself in anger. Taking a moment, Emily closed her eyes and took a deep, steadying breath. She reminded herself of who she was, beyond this moment of embarrassment. "Keep it together, Emily," she whispered to herself. She knew she had to stay calm and collected, not for Derek or the guests, but for herself. This was about maintaining her self-respect, showing that his words couldn't break her. Just as Emily was gathering her thoughts, the sound of laughter cut through her focus. The man who had been smiling earlier was now openly laughing, as if he found her pain to be the funniest thing he'd seen. It stung, tempting Emily to lash out and wipe that smirk off his face. But she held back, knowing that reacting in anger would only give them more power over her. Despite the turmoil swirling inside her, Emily clung to her initial decision. She wouldn't let Derek or the laughing man see her fall apart. She had a plan, vague as it was, and she intended to follow through with dignity. Her grace under pressure was something they couldn't take away from her, and she silently vowed to use that to her advantage. Emily finally settled on her course of action. She wouldn't give them the dramatic scene they might have been hoping for. Instead, she'd hit back in a way that was calm, collected, and utterly devastating. She would make her point without stooping to their level of pettiness. It was going to be a response that would leave Derek regretting he ever chose to humiliate her in such a cruel way. Sticking to her decision, Emily began her vows with surprising warmth, highlighting Derek's better moments and the love she thought they shared. Her words flowed gracefully, painting a picture of Derek so positive that it left the room in silent wonder. This stark contrast to Derek's cruel remarks confused everyone. They expected anger or tears, but Emily offered kindness instead. But this wasn't over yet. As Emily spoke, the room buzzed with whispers. Guests leaned towards each other, questioning what they were witnessing. Did she not hear what he just said? Some murmured, puzzled by Emily's gracious response. The kindness in her voice made Derek's earlier cruelty even more jarring. It was as if she inhabited a higher ground, far away from the pettiness of his insults. Derek, expecting anger or a breakdown, was caught off guard by Emily's composed and kind-hearted vows. As she continued, his face lost color, turning a ghostly shade of pale. The confidence he had when mocking her evaporated. Standing there, he looked smaller somehow, diminished by the strength and grace Emily exuded. His plan to humiliate her had backfired spectacularly, and Emily wasn't even done yet. With the room still reeling from her vows, Emily turned to the officiant and quietly asked to continue the ceremony. Her request, delivered with calm dignity, added to the audience's confusion. They had braced for a confrontation or a dramatic exit, but Emily chose to face the situation with an unwavering poise that left everyone, including Derek, perplexed. The ceremony concluded, but the joy and excitement that should have filled Emily were replaced by a bittersweet mix of anger and sadness. She had envisioned this day as a celebration of love, not a battlefield of humiliation. As guests began to disperse, Emily's heart ached for the dream wedding she had lost, a dream dissolved by the cruelty of the person she had trusted most. After the ceremony, Emily felt lost, wondering if there was any future with Derek after what he did. Standing alone, she replayed the moment at the altar, each word of his echoing in her mind. In the quiet of her thoughts, Emily started to piece together a plan. She wanted Derek to truly understand the depth of the pain he caused. It wasn't just about getting even. It was about teaching him a lesson he'd never forget. The reception felt like walking on a tightrope. Every interaction between Emily and Derek was charged with tension, their smiles fake and forced. Emily kept her distance, her coolness towards Derek clear. Guests picked up on the vibe, their glances bouncing between the newlyweds, trying to piece together what had gone wrong. The air was thick with unsaid things, making every moment more uncomfortable. Their first dance was supposed to be a moment of closeness, but instead, it was full of awkwardness. Emily and Derek moved together but looked miles apart, their bodies close but their hearts distant. The dance floor felt huge, the space between them loaded with the words they couldn't say out loud. It was a dance of two strangers, not lovers. As the evening went on, the reception became a hotbed for gossip. Guests whispered, speculating about the tension they felt in the air. Some wondered if there had been a fight. Others guessed at deeper issues. The joyous occasion had turned into a mystery, with everyone trying to figure out why Emily and Derek seemed so far apart on what should have been the happiest day of their lives. When Emily noticed Derek was nowhere to be seen, she saw her chance to get away from the overwhelming atmosphere of the reception. The air, thick with unspoken questions and pitying looks, had become too much. With Derek missing, Emily slipped out, eager for a breath of fresh air and a break from the stifling environment filled with silent judgments and curiosity. Finding refuge in a nearby hotel, Emily sat alone, reflecting on the whirlwind of the day. What was supposed to be a celebration of love turned into a public spectacle of her humiliation. The contrast between her dreams for the day and the harsh reality left her feeling empty. The hotel room, quiet and impersonal, offered her a blank canvas to think, far from the judgmental eyes of the wedding guests. In the solitude of her hotel room, Emily finally felt free to let down her guard. Here, In this private space, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of the day's events. It was in this quietude that she began to think about what came next. With the initial shock starting to fade, Emily's thoughts slowly shifted from hurt to action. She started to plan, finding strength in the silence that surrounded her. The phone call to her mother was difficult. Emily's voice trembled as she recounted the day's humiliations and her idea for revenge. To her surprise, her mother's response was not of caution, but of fierce support. "Tell me what you need, Emily. I'm with you." It was the reassurance Emily hadn't realized she needed, a lifeline thrown across the turbulent sea of her emotions. Strengthened by her mother's support, Emily began to outline her plan in more detail. Together, they brainstormed, their conversation a mix of strategy and comfort. It was more than just planning revenge. It was a bonding moment, a shared resolve to right a wrong. Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose, her determination fueled by the alliance with her most trusted confidant. Together, they would ensure Derek regretted his actions deeply. As Emily got deeper into planning her revenge, her phone buzzed constantly with messages from Derek. He sounded confused and worried, asking why she left the reception and where she was. Emily saw each message but chose not to reply. She was too focused on her plan, and answering him would only distract her. Derek's confusion would have to wait. Emily had a bigger picture in mind. Sitting with her mother at the hotel room desk, Emily started designing invitations for a special event. It was all fake, of course, but Derek and the rest of the guests didn't know that. The invitations were elegant and vague, sparking curiosity. As she sealed each envelope, Emily felt a mix of nerves and excitement. This was the first step in setting her plan into motion. One by one, RSVPs started coming in. Friends, family, and most importantly, Derek, confirmed their attendance, none the wiser about the evening's real purpose. Emily kept track of each response, her plan needing as many people as possible to witness. She couldn't help but smile a little each time a new confirmation came in. The stage was set, and all the players were in place. In the days leading up to the event, Emily was a whirlwind of activity. She double-checked every detail, making sure that everything would go off without a hitch. Her mother was by her side, offering support and assistance. Together, they went over the plan repeatedly, their anticipation growing. Emily knew that this night would be unforgettable, and she wanted to make sure it went exactly as she envisioned. The night before her carefully planned event, Emily found herself alone with her thoughts. She reflected on everything that had led to this moment, the hurt, the betrayal, and now the anticipation of what was to come. Lying in the dark, Emily felt a calm determination. She was ready for the culmination of her plan, ready to take back control. Tomorrow, everything would change. On the day of the event, Emily went over every part of her plan again. She checked everything twice, wanting to make sure her revenge would have the biggest impact. With her mom's help, she made some last-minute changes to ensure everything would go perfectly. Each adjustment brought a mix of nerves and excitement. Emily was determined to make this night unforgettable for Derek. As guests started to arrive at the venue, the air buzzed with excitement and curiosity. Everyone was chatting, wondering what Emily had planned for this mysterious event. The room quickly filled up, with friends and family greeting each other, their interest piqued by the unusual gathering. The atmosphere was electric, setting the stage for what was to come. Derek walked in, looking around with a hopeful look in his eyes. He seemed to think this event might be a sign of Emily's willingness to forgive him. His arrival added a layer of tension, with guests glancing his way, whispering. Emily watched from a distance, her heart beating faster. His hopeful demeanor made the evening even more charged. Not long after arriving, Derek found Emily and asked if they could talk privately. His voice was low, and he looked genuinely remorseful. This request caught Emily off guard, stirring curiosity among the guests who noticed their exchange. Emily hesitated, torn between her carefully laid plans and the possibility that Derek might truly be sorry for what he did. Emily considered Derek's request for a moment alone. Part of her wanted to dismiss him outright, to go on with her plan without hearing him out. But another part of her wondered what he had to say. Could his remorse be real? Emily knew this conversation could change the course of the evening. She had to decide whether her desire for revenge outweighed the chance to hear Derek's apology. Emily and Derek found a quiet corner away from the curious eyes of their guests. The buzz of speculation grew among the crowd as they left, everyone wondering what was being said. This private talk between the two of them, so soon into the event, added a layer of mystery to an already unusual gathering. The guests watched, their whispers filling the room with guesses and anticipation. In their secluded spot, Derek looked sincerely into Emily's eyes and apologized. He explained that her ex had influenced his cruel wedding speech, hoping to cause trouble between them. This confession threw Emily for a loop. She had expected excuses or maybe more lies, but not this. Derek's words, if true, made her feelings about the situation and her plans for revenge much more complicated. After hearing Derek out, Emily felt torn. Part of her was still angry and hurt, wanting to go through with her revenge as planned. But another part of her wondered if maybe there was more to the story than she knew. Derek's confession had introduced a new angle she hadn't considered. Now, Emily had to think hard about what she really wanted to do next. Ultimately, Emily decided to continue with her plan, though Derek's words had left a mark. She walked back into the party with a sense of purpose, her resolve somehow strengthened by the admission. Guests turned their attention to her as she moved through the room, their earlier whispers turning into a hushed silence, all eyes on Emily as she prepared to take the stage. With the room's full attention, Emily started her presentation. She shared her personal story, detailing the struggles and pain she'd faced, not just from the wedding incident, but throughout her life. As she spoke, her voice steady and strong, the room fell into a deeper silence. Guests were moved by her honesty and resilience. Emily's story, so openly shared, transformed the atmosphere of the evening, turning it from one of curiosity to one of empathy and understanding. As Emily continued her presentation, she didn't hold back on detailing how Derek's words at the altar had deeply hurt her. She described the embarrassment, the betrayal, and the loneliness she felt that day, her voice echoing through the silent room. Everyone was captivated, seeing the situation through Emily's eyes. It was a raw and powerful moment that stripped away any pretense Derek might have had left. With every slide Emily showed, the audience saw more of the truth behind her pain and Derek's actions. It wasn't just about a single moment of humiliation. It was about the impact that moment had on her life. People in the room began to see Emily in a new light, respecting her courage to stand up and share her story. The empathy in their eyes was genuine, a silent support for her bravery. Emily's presentation came to a close in a way no one expected. She calmly presented Derek with divorce papers, her decision made clear in front of everyone. The room gasped, shocked by the bold move. It was the final statement in her journey of reclaiming her dignity. This wasn't just about ending a marriage, it was about Emily standing up for herself in the most public way possible. Derek, faced with the reality of his actions and their consequences, broke down. The sight of the divorce papers, the weight of Emily's words, and the eyes of all their friends and family on him were too much. He realized too late the full extent of the pain he had caused, his remorse a cold comfort to the damage already done. Overwhelmed, he could barely speak, the remorse finally hitting home. The room fell into a profound silence, everyone reflecting on the journey Emily had taken them through. Her story, laid bare for all to see, left a lasting impact. It was a moment of collective introspection, the audience considering not just Emily's pain, but the broader implications of words and actions in their own lives. Emily's bravery in facing her hurt head-on had given everyone present something to think about. The silence a shared space for reflection. As the event ended, guests slowly started leaving, still processing what they'd witnessed. The room, once filled with murmurs and whispers, emptied out, leaving Emily and Derek amidst the quiet aftermath of their exposed relationship. The air felt heavy with unspoken thoughts, the night's revelations lingering like a shadow between them. It was a moment of truth neither could escape, forcing them to face the reality of their broken bond. In the quiet that followed, Emily turned to her mother, who had been her steadfast ally through it all. Her mother's embrace offered a comfort that words couldn't. As they left the venue together, Emily felt a sense of relief. The night had been about confronting her past, but now, with her mother's support, she felt ready to look toward the future, whatever it might hold. In the days that followed, Derek reached out to Emily, his voice carrying a sincerity she hadn't heard before. He expressed a genuine desire to understand the depth of the hurt he had caused, and to make amends. While Emily was cautious, Derek's willingness to reflect on his actions opened a door to a conversation about healing and forgiveness, a first step on a long road ahead. Recognizing the need for professional help, Emily and Derek decided to start therapy separately. These sessions became spaces of introspection and growth, allowing them both to explore their feelings and actions in a safe environment. For Emily, therapy was about healing from the pain and finding a way to rebuild her self-esteem. For Derek, it was about understanding the impact of his behavior and learning to be better. Through therapy, Emily began to see glimpses of forgiveness, not just for Derek, but for herself, too. She realized that forgiving wasn't about forgetting what happened, but about allowing herself to move past the pain. This journey of therapy brought unexpected growth for both Emily and Derek. While the future of their relationship remained uncertain, the possibility of personal growth and understanding opened a new chapter in their lives, one where they could both find peace and healing. Emily and Derek slowly started talking again, this time with a new understanding. Therapy helped them see their problems in a new light, and taught them how to talk about their feelings without hurting each other. They discovered issues they didn't even know they had. This wasn't easy, but it was a start. They were building a bridge over the gap that had formed between them, one honest conversation at a time. Even though they were getting better at talking and understanding each other, Emily and Derek knew they weren't ready to jump back into how things used to be. They kept an open mind about what could happen between them in the future. Their relationship was changing, slowly but surely. It was like they were learning who they were all over again, without the pressure of being a perfect couple. Looking back on everything that had happened, Emily realized just how strong and brave she had been. She faced her worst fears, stood up for herself, and even started to forgive Derek. She learned a lot about who she is and what she's capable of. This whole experience showed her that even when things get really tough, she can get through it and come out stronger on the other side. With the divorce officially done, Emily felt a mix of sadness and relief. It was the end of one part of her life, but also the start of something new. She felt ready to move on, armed with the lessons she'd learned and a sense of empowerment. Emily was excited about the future and all the possibilities it held. She knew she was strong enough to face whatever came next. Even after everything that had gone wrong between them, Emily and Derek managed to find a glimmer of hope. They saw that people can change, and that forgiveness is possible even in the most unlikely situations. Their story wasn't just about the end of a marriage. It was about the power of forgiveness and the chance for new beginnings. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's always a possibility for light. Do you like this touching and surprising story? If so, we invite you to leave us a comment expressing your opinion. If you want to continue enjoying inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel or check out the other videos shown at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your cooperation.